Hi, so it's an unusually warm mid-September day, so hence, sorry about that. But I'm going to be looking at what I mentioned in my last review show, Battle in Action, or Battle Action Volume 1 and Volume 2. What can I say? I absolutely adore these two books. They were such a joy to read. When I was a little kid in the 70s, I vaguely remember Action because it got merged with Battle around about 1976, I think it was. But Action basically paved the way for comics like Star Lord and 2000 AD. But the stories were much more like, hence the title, action orientated. So they covered numerous amounts of genres. So you had things like the thriller horror. So they had Hookjaw, which was like their version of Jaws. You had, I think it's Rollerball or Deathball, something like that. Yeah, I think it's called Deathball. I could be completely wrong, but it's like their version of Rollerball, which was a huge film at the time. And The Kids Are Alright, which was basically like kids overtaking the world. And because you had things like Clockwork Orange and that lot. And I think there was Dredger as well, who was basically like a UK version of Dirty Harry. So they're like pushing the. It was meant to be a kids' comic, but they were pushing the envelope, and it got banned. There was a famous bit on British TV on BBC News where Frank Boff, unfortunate name, and it turned out he was a kinky bugger later on. It's always the ones who are really kinky and weird who shout the loudest about perversion and pornography and violence, when they're the ones who are doing it in secret. But anyway, that's by the by. But he basically pinpointed the latest issue of Action, which was this one here. It's saying that it was showing kids rioting and encouraging kids to fight the police, because if you notice there's a helmet there. So that issue is what caused Action to change. They basically censored all the strips. They watered it down so much that the sales just plummeted. So they quietly merged it with Battle, and that's when you got Battle Action. So Battle Action basically has the cream of Action comics and the cream of Battle in this, but done for today's audience. So this first volume, it's basically just written completely by Garth Ennis, and it features the art. I think this could be one of the final art pieces of Kevin O'Neill and John Higgins, who made his name as the colorist for Watchmen, but he's a beautiful artist in his own right. Chris Burnham, who did the Unstoppable Doom Patrol. PJ Holden, I don't think people in America will be familiar with him, but he's done a lot of 2000 AD work. Keith Burns, who's an amazing war artist. Patrick Goddard, who did Savage for 2000 AD, and the most recent one where people will know him from. He did the recent 2000 AD revamp of Rogue Trooper with Garth Ennis, which is a really nice hardback that's out at the moment, which I think I will buy, even though I've got it in comic form. And Mike Dory, who's one of the original artists on Action. So the strips that are included in here are Johnny Red versus Screamer of the Stuckers, Hellman versus Glory Right, the Sarge, Crazy Keller, Dredger, Helmer versus Glory Rider, Kids Rule OK, and Nina Petrova and the Angels of Death. Now, Nina Petrova is a completely new strip, but not a new character, but she never had her own strip before. So the first story features Johnny Red, who was like basically like Battle's version of every British comic story's got like a standout like character who's like the main character people know when you mention the comic, and Johnny Red was that. He was like the frontispiece for Battle. So basically, it's about this British Air Force pilot from Liverpool who ends up joining the Russian army and becoming a pilot there. And these are his friends here. He's amazing. He's such a good character. And so in this story, they're basically fighting off against this really horrible German officer called Stucker. Even the Germans don't like him. He's like really hardcore, and he's like one of the most vicious pilots that the German army's got. And this, I don't know what it is, but British comics do really, really good, or they used to do, and they do with Rebellion, really good war stories. They get the planes just right. There's nothing gung ho about it or OTT. It's not like Sergeant Rock or Fury and his Howling Commandos. It's very grounded, very realistic, and it doesn't hide the atrocity of war. And the art by Keith Benson is showing the vice blades. It's almost like reading a film, if that makes sense, reading a war film. And it had me so engaged. So each story is about, normally on average, about 12 pages, 14 pages in length. And this was so amazing in the artwork. Garth Ennis does his best writing when he's not trying to shock, when he's just doing a good, solid war story. That is, he said it himself. He doesn't like superheroes. You can tell this is his favourite playhouse is just doing good, grounded war stories. And after that, there's the Sarge. I've actually got the first volume of the Sarge. So this was the Sarge when it came out in battle, and this is basically about just a no-nonsense Sarge. He's got seniority over the people who are under him, not just through ranking but through age as well. You know, he's lived through the war. I think he's like in his late 30s, early 40s. So he's got this. So he's almost like a father figure to the rest of the crew who are under his command, the rest of the unit. And this story again just it conveys in a very natural way the tension that the soldiers are under, not just on the English side but on the German side as well. Like when this rabbit comes across, the primeters shoot it to blow it up because they think it's an enemy approaching. And then there's just little moments of savagery where you've got the camaraderie of the men working together, and then you've got these savage little bursts of blood that just fight. They are literally fighting for their lives, and it's just things like that, just so iconic. Just a very simple panel, but it just shows how it was horrible. It was a horrible war. But shifting in tone, there's another story, and I remember this because it was my brother who used to get Battle. I used to get 2000 AD and Star-Lord. He got Battle and Valiant and comics like that. And it was crazy colour this because I didn't really like Battle when I was a kid. I always like things that were a bit more fantastical, but now I love reading stuff what I never really enjoyed when I was young. And Crazy Keller, he's basically he's an American soldier, and he loves the war. He's using it as the big con, so he can. He basically just tries to get as many scams going as he can. So everybody owes him money. He tries to get people stuff through the black market and things like that. And it's basically based on it's basically based on Donald Sutherland from especially his roles in MASH and Kelly's Heroes. He's even got the same kind of headgear, and he's got that same kind of gung-ho, slightly cynical attitude. It always felt like Donald Sutherland was a modern character drops in a war film because he had that almost cynical, jaded feeling. And this is what this is like. But I love his sidekick Ariel, who's very much like not Klinger. What's he called, Ariel in MASH? That little short guy. Anyway, the one with glasses, him. And the humor's great. They're picking up this German scientist who's defected. And you're just laughing, and suddenly you're laughing, and the next thing you know, you don't want to laugh because this happens. And it's Chris Burnham, by the way, doing the art on this. Like I said, all the stories are written by Garth Ennis. And they are hating the job that they're doing, but it's because one of the commanders has got Crazy Keller under his thumb because he knows all the schemes that he's been doing, so he's basically blackmailing him. And they don't want to take this gentleman back because they find out more and more what the what the Allies want to use the German for is just as bad as what the Germans were going to use him for. He basically experiments on people and deals with chemical warfare and things like that. I love that panel, by the way. So, I'm not going to show you that last panel, but that's it. They basically know how they realise how they can solve the problem. And it was almost a hint of Garth Ennis's The Boys kind of humour coming into this one, but in a really fun, blink and you miss it kind of way. I had to like do a double take when I first read it. Yeah, wonderful. And I think this is one of my favourites. This is Dredger. Dredger, basically, like I said, it's basically like a British version of it's like the Sweeney meets Dirty Harry. So yeah, they say here it's Dirty Harry meets the Ipcress file by way of the Sweeney. So he works for this secret service called SIS, made up name, in Britain, and it's called Dredger. And that's him. So he basically shoots first and asks questions later. This is John Higgins' new artwork. This is very, very over the top, and it works. I'd love to see an ongoing series of Dredger, well, for him to come back in 2000 AD. The artwork is so dynamic and action-packed, literally. And just when you think they can't go any further in depravity, they can. This, honestly, I don't think this would get past even like the most adult American comic company. And he finds out that there's somebody taking over running the SIS and people who he works for, and it turns out to be his mum. So, and she's even more hardline than he is. So it was just wonderful. I really enjoyed that. This one is called Helmet of Hammerforce, and it's a crossover of a character called Glory Rider, who's basically this American coward. But he likes to get all the glory for himself, whereas not getting his hands dirty in the process. And Hellman, which was very controversial when it first came out because it was basically focusing on this German squad. But Hellman hated the Nazis, and so he basically just did what he could as a German soldier, but not as a Nazi. And his mission, what he wanted to do, basically was he wanted to kill Hitler. He hated what Hitler had done to Germany. And this is featured in artwork by Mike Dory, who was the original artist on Hellman. So this is basically just, whereas Johnny Red is the Air Force, this is the tank battalions. And again, completely different tone of artwork, but beautiful, beautiful artwork. This is a much more serious side of Garth Ennis with this story. To say it's writing about a German troop, it's very, very moralistic, and it has a very satisfying ending to that story. And then we're moving on to the most meta story, which is Kids Rule OK. So basically, the premise of Kids Rule OK back in action was that this virus swept across the country, and all the adults died, and the kids ruled OK. The kids were the ones who were left alive. So, what I mean by this being meta, the focus on why action got banned, why there was this outcry for action to be banned, because of this story. So, who's best for doing an outrageous story? You get Kevin O'Neill to do the artwork. And like I said, it's one of his final pieces. It might have been his last one, or his next to last artwork that he did. So it's a story within a story. So you've got the story of the bullpen of IPC, who are the ones who produced the comic, talking about what can they do to change the story to make it, to calm it down, and why is this a big outcry. So they're doing this story where he's basically attacking this copper, which is the one where there's a big outcry, and they do it from so many different points of view. So it's like they kind of like reset it, pause, reset, start again, to see if they can do one that is more palatable. And there's a really good twist at what they make more palatable. They basically said, it's bad to kick a copper, but it's alright to kick a civilian. But they actually explain why it should have been banned, because if you look at the picture of the cover, I don't want to tell you why, there's a reason why it wasn't a copper who got, it wasn't a policeman who got assaulted. But the finish on this page here showing that's when it merged with Battle Action and just became a very watered down version of what it used to be. And then I think this is the final one. Yeah, the final story of Volume 1 is Nina Petrova and the Angels of Death, again written by Garth Ennis, artwork by Patrick Goddard. So Nina Petrova, she's one of the supporting cast members of Johnny Red. She's basically Johnny Red's love interest, but she has her own fleet of female pilots. So this is her style. And if anything, she's more badass than Johnny Red and her male counterparts. Because Russian soldiers in the wartime, they didn't discriminate. If you're over a certain age, you went to war. Didn't matter if you're male or female. But the artwork, Patrick Goddard is fast becoming one of my favourite artists. The artwork is gorgeous, very, very satisfying story. And I like how they fleshed out her character more and her troop. So, what mark would I give this? I would say I would give it an 8 out of 10. Presentation wise, wonderful. I love that it's I don't like dust jackets. I love art on board. I love that. I think it just something about, especially with like the slightly glossy lettering and things. Because I hate it when you get a dust jacket, sometimes you can accidentally rip it, and that's it, you buggered. But really nice frontispieces as well. The whole presentation, I like how each story has a small synopsis of what went before, to fill you in on the characters if you've never read the comics in the first place. They also have little bios of all the artists and writers, and yeah, really fun, good introduction. But they really up the game with Volume 2. As you can see, it's a lot thicker. The first one is about 100 pages. This one is just shy of 200 pages. The first one was £19.99 or $24.99. This one is £24.99 or $32.99. But like I said, it's a lot heavier, a lot more in it. So it's got a similar cast of characters, but it's not just Garth Ennis centric on the writing. So with this one, you have Johnny Red, again by the same team of Garth Ennis and Keith Burns. Great story again, some wonderful artwork. But I won't elaborate on that much more because that's the story that we looked at on the first one. But then there's a new story, HMS Nightshade, which was a story from Battle. And they said how it's written by John Wagner, and he wants to prove the Battle editors wrong, that because they said you can never do a good war story about a boat. Sea warfare just isn't interesting. So he kind of went, fuck you, and he went to prove them wrong. So this one is written by John Wagner, and it's got art by Dan Cornwell. So it starts with so it must be like in the 60s. So it starts with this man and his son, and he's reminiscing to his son about the war, where he worked on this ship called HMS Nightshade. John Wagner, he's in a league of his own for just doing such naturalistic talk and dialogue. And the art of Dan Cornwell, he's done a lot of art that I like, but he's up to his game on here, because I didn't know he could do this style of art. Because it's not easy to draw so many different vehicles and fight sequences. But yeah, this gave me a similar vibe to Saving Private Ryan, where they took away all the gloss of war, the Hollywoodization of war, the romanticism of war, and it hit home. I was actually kind of choked up at the end, because it just showed the senselessness of a lot of it and the repercussions of it, especially with his crew, which won't elaborate more, because you really do need to buy these books. So next up, wonderful cover by the way, is Hot Wheels. But this is a crossover with the previous character Crazy Keller, who remember I said was like Donald Sutherland from Kelly's Heroes, and it's Chris Burnham on the art again. So Hot Wheels are basically these two guys who have this vehicle, and they just like transport stuff for people, and that's it. But it's a really good crossover. Um, this is set up just when the war has finished, so they're basically just trying to make sure that all the German troops leave, and if they don't leave, they'll get, put in internment camps. And they stumble across this group of young children who've been indoctrinated by the Nazis. It's wonderful. It's a great story. This one is written by Garth Ennis and Chris Burnham. So obviously this is a character that Garth Ennis adores, and he must really like Crazy Keller. But yeah, it's a very, very good, satisfying story. A lot of humour in it, but then on the next page it hits you with the seriousness of war, and especially with the children. It shows how how propaganda can corrupt the youngest minds if you preach it at them young enough. And they basically had to deprogram by doing a short, sharp shock. Very, very good. And the next one could be actually the most gorgeous strip I've seen in a long time. It's by Dan Abnett on story, art by Phil Winslade. I love Phil Winslade. He did Goddess years ago with Garth Ennis, the Vertigo, and he also did one called Monolith for DC. And he's been doing a fantastic series for Just Dread magazine, which is one of my favourite stories, which is Lawless, which is like a futuristic western. And in that, he just does black and white art, but in this one, it's colour, and the artwork is jaw-dropping. So D-Day Dawson, it's about this soldier, and he's got a bullet close to his heart. And the whole premise of D-Day Dawson is that it's called D-Day because it could be it's Death Day Dawson. He could die at any moment. So he takes risks what normally you wouldn't take. And this is set in France. And he stumbles across this group of Germans who are basically just terrorising this area and just basically ransacking it. And he just tries to help out this young woman, this young French woman and her child. Oh my god, I love this story. Again, it felt like I was watching a film. It's like it's about 12 pages, but they did so much in it. I was engrossed. Oh, loved it. And next up, we have one of my personal favourites, Major Easy. Major Easy was created by Carlos Esquera, and you can tell it's got that very cool, edgy, almost like Judge Dredd kind of look. I mean, that's what he looked like back in the day. He's basically a cross between how did it sum it up? Oh, what's it called? Is it James Coburn? I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, him and Clint Eastwood. But the artwork it's written by Rob Williams, who's a really good writer, and art is by Henry Flint, who's one of my favourite artists. So he's basically just a cool as fuck major in the British Army. He should be American really, because it comes across like that. And so he's in the army, and he basically doesn't give a shit. He's no respecter of higher ranks, and he drives a Bentley. And this page is just wonderful, where he basically just mows through this group of German soldiers with his Bentley, opens up on them, and it's told from the perspective of this young soldier who basically idolises him and realises that you don't have to be a yes man, that the war is evil, you can think for yourself. It's just great, because he comes into conflict with this other commander who's a real stuffed shirt, who's refusing to do things unless he gets the word from the high up, and Major Easy basically just tells him to go fuck yourself, and does things and gets results, as you can see in this page here. And there he talks about young soldier. Oh, I loved it. it was just wonderful. And next up again, we've got Dredger. So again, I won't elaborate much on this. Again, by Garth Ennis and John Higgins. But I do want to show a page of this. So Dredger's mum gets kidnapped by this rich, corrupt politician's sister. And so Dredger's mum is even more savage than Dredger, and she's tied up, so she headbutts the woman and grabs hold of her nose and she won't let go. She rips her nose off, and you get to see it in all its glory, basically. And it carries on. It's extreme. It's very, very extreme. It's like a 70s grindhouse movie. It's just brilliant. And after that, you have Death Squad, which is about these the German army, but they're like the ones who so basically the worst band of cutthroats who were in the Wehrmacht, and they get sent to the Eastern Front and they basically do the shit work what the other platoons won't do. So they're hard as nails, the savages basically. And they go and rescue this officer's son who's in the army as well, but then they find out the son's scum, and things happen from that, and it's great. It's a really satisfying ending. You give a little yay. And then next up is Cooley's Gun, which is about this gunner by Garth Ennis, art by Stas Johnson. Stas Johnson is a wonderful artist, and they sum it up in here. They said he's got the personality of Judge Dredd. Cooley has. It's him and his gun. And doesn't matter whose side you're on, if he thinks you're doing wrong, he'll shoot you. So that's it. But this is life in the trenches basically, and it really conveys it so well all the way through to where they shoot somebody, and it describes the bullets making the head explode, and the guy who shot him is choking because he can feel bits of the bone of the skull that's exploded coming into his sinus passages, and he can't see because the brain matter's in his face and stuff like that. It just conveys it so well. Yeah, it's brutal and it's amazing. It's good. It's very, very good. And then we have another Nina Petrova one, but this time it's written by Torun Grombeck, and I think I saw an interview somewhere which said this was her dream comic to do. She loves airplanes, she loves Second World War, and she does a really good job. She fleshes out Nina much more than Garth Ennis did. I think it helps having a woman's perspective on it. And Patrick Goddard on the art again, really good, fantastic. Air combat, yeah, loved it. And then Hellman again by Garth Ennis and Mike Dory. This one is set before the Second World War. This is when they're in Spain with the Italian fascists and the Spanish fascists. And this is when he realises that even though he's loyal to his country, but he does not believe in the ideology that they have. So it's basically like his origin story, and it's got a few shocking twists at the end. And then this story I adore, because this is the one strip that I used to read, apart from Crazy Keller from my brother's Battle Action Comics, and it's Rat Pack. This is basically like the Dirty Dozen. So it's a group of convicts, British convicts, who get sent to. It's basically like their version of the Suicide Squad, where they get. So that's them all there. They get sent out to do the dirty work. Because it doesn't matter, they're expendable. If they die, they die, the convicts. And they're overseen by this guy who kind of admires them in a way. He's got this really good bond with them. So this is by Garth Ennis and Keith Burns, who did Johnny Red. And this is very tongue-in-cheek. It's wonderful. They basically bring this American commander back who wants to file an action against them. He's full of bluff and bluster, thinking that he's better than them, and it's great. It's I don't want to say too much because you need to read it, because it's very, very funny. When Garth Ennis nails it with humour, you can't beat him, but he sometimes can be a bit over the top with grossness, but there's no grossness in this. It's just really good humour. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then finally, there's another Hellman story, and this is focusing on some children who've been abandoned, um, and it's an interesting one because it talks about it's the conflict between brother and the sister. The brother's full of the romanticism of the German army. He's soaks up the ideology and he's basically being brainwashed, whereas the sister, she's a bit older and she's been thinking for herself. She realises that the German army's not all it's cracked up to be. There's a lot of evil there. So yeah, it was good. What I liked about this one more than the other one as well, it's got some really good back matter, so it shows you how to work out the page, the cover layouts from concept sketch, and some of the interior sketches as well. So yeah, really, really satisfying reads. I do recommend trying these if you want to dip your toes into something that's not 2000 AD centric, but part of the UK comics heritage, but with a modern viewpoint. One I will show as well. I'm not going to elaborate much because it's been talking for half an hour. I've not read it yet, but I will show you what it looks like to give you another look at some British comics. So, back in the 60s, IPC, who were the initial publishers of 2000 AD and Battle, etc., they did a comic called Smash, which was basically a home for reprints of a lot of American comics, American superheroes, but they also had their own superhero comics in it as well. So you have people like The Spider, Archie the Robot, Adam Eterno, Steel Claw and things like that. So last year they brought out a mini series, Rebellion. They're the ones who published 2000 AD now, where they resurrected the superheroes from that time period, but instead of just having it set in the 60s or set in modern day, it went from 60s all the way through to modern day, and they had Paul Grist write it. But you've got amazing art in this. Tom Foster, who's the closest we've got now to Brian Bolland, Anna Morozova, Jimmy Broxton again, who's a really, really nice artist, and VV Glass. So it opens up with a black and white story. This is artwork by Tom Foster, and this features Jaina Stark, who basically could escape from anything. And I love these black and white, and then you have this splash of colour. So it looks like some kind of evil has been released. Then it moves forward to 1967, where we meet the Spider, who's basically a superhero / criminal. Very, very, he fluctuated in what he was. The artwork in this is very fitting for like a 60s period. And then, I'm not going to go much into this because I've not read it yet, so I don't want to spoil it for myself. But that cover, you've got Robot Archer there. If you've read Zenith, the Zenith collections, you'll know Robot Archer on there, whereas Acid Archie. But they also bring in the 13th Floor, which was a strip that was in Scream and the Eagle about a possessed building, which is that there. But this artwork by Jimmy Broxton, who did a Vampirella strip a while ago, is absolutely gorgeous. He's got so much style. The only thing about Jimmy Broxton, he's not meant to be such a nice guy. I was going to take a comic to get signed by him at a convention, but I've read a bit about him and he's a bit of a douche. Not got a great attitude. But you've got Robot Archer there as well. But the artwork, like I said, it's just jaw-droppingly beautiful. And then after that, I'll just show you up a few pages. After that, we move to 2023. This is art by VV Glass. Again, the artwork is just top notch. There's no weak art in this. So that finished off the miniseries, but then they had backup strips as well, what they've reprinted as well. And again, it's a Murderer's Row of Talent. It's got a Spider strip with art by John McCrea of Hitman fame. Then there's, I'm not familiar with this character, Thunderbolt, the Avenger. And then, I love the art on this, it's Tom Rain doing the art on this one. Johnny Future Time Out, which is about this character who evolves and becomes this superhuman. And we've got some gorgeous art here by Charlie Adlard of Walking Dead fame, Steel Claw, written by Charlie Higson of the Fast Show stories, and he did the Fast Show series, and he did the Dead series of YA books. And then there's one by Andreas Buzzback, who I've never heard of. And this is Curse to Doom. And then another completely different art style by Anand Radishkananind. And this is Maitek the Mighty. And then we have some beautiful, beautiful arts. If you've been getting Paranoid Gardens, you know what I mean. This is Chris Weston doing artwork, art written by Simon Furman, and this is the House of Dolmen. So, well worth getting. It's only £14.99 full price. Get it quite with a bit of a discount if you look around. Yeah, and it's about 175 to 180 pages. Really nice. I'm looking forward to reading this. I'll most give a review once I've finished reading it. But like I said, it's got a lot of the classic characters spanning earlier than the 60s all the way through some modern day, future days. So that's it. Hope that was okay. I hope you can hear me okay, because unfortunately my microphone's playing up, so I've had to just use my phone one. Okay, bye.